So this week is all about control function, right? So we're just gonna cover some of the basic ones. There are more available, but with the ones that are in the book and that we're gonna cover today, you should have a good overview of everything that you would need in order to add control to programs. Right. So we all know if statements, right? So we can just have a simple if statement that if something is true, then we do this. And if it's not, we just skip these statements. And then you can do more things like if this is true, do this. Otherwise, if this is true, do this. Otherwise, if this is true, do this. And otherwise, if none of those are true, do this. Right? So we have if statements and if else if statements. And similar to this, we need to be able to determine what are those conditions for these if statements to be executed or not. So here are our operators. We can check if things are less than, greater than, less than or equal, greater than or equal, equal, or not equal, right? And we can also combine things together by using these logical operators, such as and, or, not, or XOR. So we're all familiar with this, yes? And similar to if statements, there's a switch statement that is kind of a more compact version of if statements, especially if all of the cases have to do with the same expression. If you have different variables checked in different if-else statements, probably the switch statement is not what you want to use. But if it's just like if this variable is within this range, then I do this. If it's in this range, then I do this, and you're checking the same variable, it'll be more compact to use this switch statement. And we have for loops and while loops. So thus far, we have not needed to use for loops, but you've probably used one. Just because that's what you're familiar with, right? But for the most part, in MATLAB, if a for loop can be avoided, we should not use for loops. And it's just for performance reasons. And it's the same thing for a while loop, because a while loop and for loop are just like the same thing, but just in a different form. Right. So the other thing that is in your reading are these local functions. So within a script file, you can create these functions that are only called within the script. So this is function, and the name is subtract two arrays. It takes two variables, and then it returns to s. And this is add two arrays, and this is also returning to s. And this is the function descriptor. And then here on the script, we have A and we have B. So this is just 2, 4, 6, 8, right? Up to 20. And then B is just going to be 1, 2, 3. So then adding the two, I get 3, 6, 9, right? And then if I subtract the two, we're getting 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So if you want to make like helper functions, this is one way that you can do it. And these are local functions. So these are not functions to be used by a separate script. These are only within this script. And that's is it for this week. This week should be a little bit lighter. And next week is testing. So you've been practicing testing this whole semester, but next week you'll work on a little bit, not too large, but it should be composed of multiple functions, and you'll get more practice with testing on a slightly larger project. So right now you're making the tennis ball thing, right? So it's not that many lines. You could argue that it could fit in one function, right? So the next assignment is going to be made such that it should not be one function. You should split it up, and you should decide how to test your split up functions. So we don't have any questions? So tennis ball and scatter plots is due Friday. And then there are a couple of Xylabs in the book that you are going to do for these control statements. And that would be due next week. Right. And then after testing, we're going to start using Simulink, and we're going to use the boards again. So we're going to get back to the boards after we're about halfway through, right? A little more. So all of this up until testing was just getting you guys acclimated to MATLAB first.